hot tea, hot lights, big beard, and plenty of questions. What's good, Internet? My name is Attackslug. The long-awaited question and answer video series returns. I think the second time this year. It's been kind of a long and frustrating year, but it is still 2017. So therefore, I have 17 questions to answer here from you guys out in the audience. So let's get right to it and do it. First question coming in from The Reaper, who wants to know, what are you most excited to see in WWE 2K18? James Ellsworth. Oh wait, they haven't announced him yet. Outside of that, I would say the backstage stuff, the new stuff, looks pretty cool. The catering and the production truck and the limo. Hopefully you can drive that forklift. And obviously, the one thing I play more than anything else is My Career. And I'm not going to say I'm excited for it, but of the things they've announced thus far, it sounds like it could be way better than last year, and the year before, and the year before. So, if it's good, I'm thrilled. If it's bad, I'm playing it anyway. So, that's kind of just where I am. And it has two paths. So, if it's actually really good, I'll play it twice. If it's not very good, I'll play it once, and that's if it doesn't break and not allow me to finish it like 2K17 did. Next question from Sports Spirit, who wants to know, who do I think is the very best indie guy the WWE has ever signed in its entire history? This is a toss-up. You know it's a toss-up between either CM Punk or Daniel Bryan, and guess what? Neither of them are wrestling anymore, which is a crying shame. CM Punk bailed out to go fight for real, and Daniel Bryan is just biding the time until the end of his contract in 7 or 8 months, and then he's going to go work and wrestle somewhere else. You know it's going to happen. Just imagine Daniel Bryan and Omega, Daniel Bryan and Okada, Daniel Bryan and anybody on that New Japan roster. As Booker T would say, Sound B wants to know, who got me into video games and what was the first game I ever played? Well, I would have been about 5, so my actual recollection of the actual first game is kind of hazy because I was 5. So perhaps Moon Patrol, perhaps that terrible version of Pac-Man on the Atari 2600, but definitely my dad is the one who bought the Atari and had all those games, so I guess it's his fault that I'm into video games. I do have a distinct memory of playing a Pong machine, like legit. All it had was Pong. It took 6 C batteries, and me and my sister would play Pong when we were super young. Getting more specific, this guy wants to know the first WWE game that I ever played. Now, again, this was a long, long time ago. So, it would have been, obviously, I got into wrestling in 1994. So it would have been after 94. And the two games I can recall playing a good deal of in that time frame, in the mid-90s time frame, would have been WWF Rage in the Cage for the Sega CD and WWF Raw for the Super Nintendo. I had a Genesis and a Sega CD. My sister had a Super Nintendo. So it would have been one of those two. Both excellent games at the time. Or perhaps that's just my nostalgia talking. I haven't gone back to play them in years and years and years. They could be terrible. I don't know. Martin G wants to know, have I ever considered getting into the video game line of work? And it's just that, a lot of work. I think that 2017, we are at this point where any lone individual in a bedroom with enough time and talent can totally make a video game by themselves. But that's toiling for a lot of hours. First of all, you gotta have an idea. Second of all, you gotta learn how to program. And third of all, you're going to spend a lot of unpaid time making that prototype, making that game to even get to the point where it might make you some money. Whereas being here on YouTube, it's a much more immediate, okay, I have a thing I want to do, and I do a video, and if it does well, then you make money. Or at least you used to, thanks, Adpocalypse. But there's also the critical side of it, which obviously you would find me on at the moment, although I don't work for any publication or, website or whatever. But the problem with that is largely, if you're working for a publication, they're usually in San Francisco, and I'm not moving to San Francisco. Not happening. And it was very tempting to put in some kind of an application for the East Coast offices of Giant Bomb in New York when they were looking for a new East Coast video podcast personality person. That was very tempting, but I don't think I would have made the cut, to be honest. Amazing Ninja 11 is amazing. Wants to know, what games am I excited about besides 2K18? I'll just cover this year, because obviously next year, tons of stuff. Yakuza 6. But in terms of what's still coming out this year that has a solid release date, we have obviously tip top of the list, Mario Odyssey, because it's a new Mario game, and come on now. Evil Within 2, Wolfenstein, South Park, Tokyo Xanadu, which obviously is already out on the Vita, but I'm waiting for that PS4 version in, like, November. That vampire game from the folks who made Life is Strange. Ruiner, Heat Signature, from the guy who made Gunpoint. And, a handful of VR stuff like The Inpatient and that Doom VFR game, which might be good, might not be good, but it's VR, and I'm always looking for new VR stuff to play because I bought the damn headset for $400. Come on now. But this has already been a ridiculous year for amazing video games. Like, I am just up to my eyeballs in things to play and not enough time. And on that same note, Sean the Man 1 wants to know my opinion on my Game of the Year candidates thus far. Obviously, there are still a lot of heavy hitters coming out. It's only like the middle of September, so we obviously got a bunch of more games to play through. And as with any year, with my Game of the Year list, it depends on what I have time to play. And there were a lot of long games this year, and some of which I have not finished yet or just started, like Ys 8. I just started doing Ys 8. That game looks amazing, but I'm only like an hour and a half into it. But from the top half of the year, from what I've played, that will most definitely appear on my Game of the Year list in some capacity. Yakuza 0, Persona 5, Zelda, Resident Evil 7, Battlegrounds, Mario and Rabbids, Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch, but there have been a lot of great games this year. So I would say most years when I'm breaking down my top 10 into retail and digital, when you're starting to hit like, 8, 9, 10, it kind of starts to be a struggle. Okay, what have I played that actually deserves to be on this list? And what, is just being in there because I played it, and then it was pretty good but not great. This year is going to be a fight. This year, my brain is going to have a fight to get onto that top 10 list on both sides, because there are just so many amazing games that I played this year, and so many more to come. Like, October is just jam-packed with insane amounts of games. I'm not going to have time to play them all, but I will do the best that I can. Yokozuna Banzai wants to know, do I think Triple H will take control, and if he does, will he make the WWE better once Vince is gone? Well, first of all, that theory is predicated on the belief that Vince McMahon will ever die. Do you see Vince putting over the Grim Reaper? Come on now. But I think realistically, you're going to end up seeing a power struggle between Triple H and Steph and Shane, because I think Shane wants what is rightfully his as the firstborn son and whatever else. So I'll be curious to see how things handle, but I don't think they're going anywhere. And I think Triple H has done a great job on NXT. Now, can what he's done on NXT translate onto the main roster shows? I think we've seen more often than not, it kind of doesn't really work. I think what works for that same audience in Full Sail week after week does not necessarily work for an audience in every single city in America, as they're, on the road constantly. So, maybe. Who knows? What we do know is Vince will never step down. So if Vince lives another 20 years into his 90s, we will still have Vincent Kennedy McMahon, damn it, running the show. And speaking of which, Ronaldo Gala wants to know, how long do I think WWE will last for? As long as there is a McMahon living and breathing. And keep in mind, Steph had 3 kids, Shane had 3 kids. There's plenty of McMahons in the pipeline to have authority figure angles for the rest of our natural lives. Or as Terry Funk would say, forever, forever, forever! Steve Pham wants to know my thoughts on the new iPhone X. Not buying it. Too expensive. And I'm an Android guy. So all the features are saying, oh, hey, new features, new fancy features. And I'm like, I've already had those in Android for a number of years. So not really excited to me at all. The only thing I will give them a notch up on Android on are the cameras. The cameras they put in those phones are really, really good. And honestly, at some point, I should just buy myself an actual, regular, like, real DSLR camera and then not worry about my cell phone camera doing these videos, etc., etc. Which I totally would have done by now if there was any money in making YouTube videos. Thanks, Adpocalypse. 900Z wants to know, do I have any music or band recommendations? Off the top of my head, I would say go check out some Dope. New album this year. Part 2 next year. They put out some amazing stuff. Also, go check out Year of the Ox. Go check out K-Flay. And go check out my boy Mega Ran, and his new album just dropped like 2 weeks ago. The hardest working man in nerdcore. Pablo, the janitor, wants to know if I gotta pick what kind of game the other alleged WWE game coming out next year would be. What kind of game would it be? That was the one where they had Taker in New York SummerSlam weekend, and they supposedly were doing face scans for a game, but it was not from people who worked for 2K. So a lot of rumors and speculation running around. Fingers crossed it's not a mobile game. We don't need any more shitty mobile games. But I would like to see something else in the vein of an All-Stars. Just, completely and totally over the top, insane. Honestly, that Immortals game, that mobile game, if you had that into a full-fledged, like, Mortal Kombat style fighting game with those characters, I'd be all about that. But also, how about like a 2D Double Dragon style beat 'em up? Could be cool. They could bring back that weird concept that they had from a couple years back where they had like Vince McMahon in like a mech suit. That game sounded awesome. Ace Plays wants to know, do I watch The Simpsons? Not anymore. Not since like season like 13 or 14. I have not watched it regularly. Every once in a while, I'll catch an episode and go, oh, this isn't very good. But Simpsons, seasons 1 through 10 are gold. You can kind of put 11 on there, and maybe a handful of episodes from 12, but past that, it just fell off a giant cliff and is not what, everything peaks. Everything creatively, when you have a long-running TV show that you're constantly using the same characters on over and over and over, eventually you run out of ideas. There's a reason the phrase, Simpsons did it, exists, because they've done everything. But as long as it still makes money, and most of those voice actors are still alive, they're gonna keep doing it. Anthony Swade Vlogs wants to know, do I have a nickname for my subscribers? And not really. I know a lot of big channels do that. They have like, the army or the team or the squad or etc., etc. But I always feel like that's kind of exploiting the basic human psychology of the need to belong. And personally, I'm just kind of here to make videos that I think are hopefully good. Like, I'm just trying to make videos that people might want to watch without having to resort to, all those different various YouTube tactics and whatnot. So if you want to call yourselves the Slugscribers or whatever, have at it. But I feel like a lot of channels who do that, it just seems artificial. Paulie Martinez asks, am I going to start SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 My Career Mode? I think it's called Story Mode, but it's not called My Career. That was before My Career existed. But also, we are so close here to 2K18, it's not going to happen until next year at the earliest. Obviously, this year's game takes precedence, and then when I finish that, or it bugs out, or whatever, then I'll play other older games. So, springtime, maybe summer, depending on how long it takes to get through 2K18. Jose Cruz wants to know, when are we going to play WCW Nitro on Perplexing Pixels? And all I can say is, eventually. Eventually. I don't know when. I don't know where. It will happen. Just be a little patient. Same thing goes for Legends of Wrestling 1, which is in this room somewhere. I try every week to hopefully play things that are newer. And then if we have a week where there's kind of nothing really coming out or Gamefly totally screwed me, then we sub in a old wrestling game. You don't want to do too many in a row. You want to at least keep the reactions from Grimm fresh when it's been, a month or two, and then you bring him in one. Because if you're just having the same jokes, the same complaints that he has about old wrestling games every single week, that gets really boring. But to answer the question of just how many more old wrestling games have we not played, there are at least 10, if not 20, if not more. There's still a bunch we have not played. They released a lot of wrestling games in the late 90s. Shock and surprise. And finally, Secret Agent Randy Beans wants to know, what is the worst game I've played thus far in 20 2017. I'm usually pretty good about avoiding games that I think might be bad, or games that I know I would not like when it comes to renting and certainly purchasing. So pretty much I'm almost guaranteed, if I buy a game, I know I already like the studio, or it's already been out in Japan for months and I know it's good, etc., etc. So sometimes, I'll get a game from GameFly and be like, oh, this is not very good. And I did not expect it because either it didn't have reviews, or, they didn't get any press copies. So I will throw out two answers here. Number one is 1-2 Switch. And that game, had it been a pack-in, I wouldn't even have an opinion of it. But because you took that weird minigame collection and put it on the Switch for a price of $50 retail in a box, nah, son, don't do that. That game was not worth paying $50 for a bunch of minigames. I'm sorry. And number two, not really bad, just incredibly disappointing, was Agents of Mayhem. I like Volition. I liked Saints Row. I liked Red Faction. They're capable of making games that are great, and I don't think Agents of Mayhem is bad. I just think it's aggressively mediocre. And in a year where there are so many amazing video games, playing anything that is anywhere near mediocre is a giant waste of my time. Anyway, that wraps up another question and answer video. I'm all out of my hot tea. My voice is starting to get a little bit rough, so wrap things up. Thanks for watching. More videos every day. And I'll see you next time, right here on this channel. And I'm out.